All right, as we reported, possible breaking news, not official yet, but President Trump has said he would be absolutely honored if RFK Jr. endorsed him. Very interesting. Joining us now, Texas Senator John Cornyn. Mr. Cornyn, welcome back, sir. So what do you make of this story? RFK Jr. coming over to Trump. How does John Cornyn see it?
Well, RFK knows he's not going to be the next president of the United States. So the question is, how does he influence the outcome of the race? And this is certainly one way to do it. And we know he has dramatic differences with President Biden and Vice President Harris, and maybe a few differences with President Trump. But on balance, I think that could well be decisive in a number of these key battleground states.
Well, what do you think, Senator? In the prior segment, Alex Castellanos and Katie mentioned, Virginia, Arizona. I think, though, Kennedy has, low single digits, but he's got 3, 4, 5% in the Great Lakes states also, doesn't he?
Well, and what they call a candidate who wins 50% plus one vote, they call him the winner. And so it doesn't need to be a landslide. It can just be a 1 or 2 point play in each of these places. And as you know, the Electoral College decides the election and not the popular vote. So it could well be decisive.
Have you ever talked to Bob Kennedy Jr.?
I have not. He's a fascinating individual. I've just watched him from afar. But this could definitely affect the outcome of the race.
Yeah, he's a very gracious man, a very smart guy. I don't agree with some of it. I agree with others of it. One other thing, Senator Cornyn, this may not come as a shock, but there has been no discussion. No discussion in the convention on the economy, but no discussion about the border. 10 million illegals crossing the border, none of that stuff. Pathway to citizenship, which is in the platform, which we believe Ms. Harris agrees with. Absolutely no discussion of the border, which I think is a disgrace.
Absolutely. You may have seen, Larry, that yesterday the Office of Inspector General at the Department of Homeland Security was able to demonstrate that more than 30,000 children failed to show up for their immigration court hearings. This is on top of a New York Times investigative piece where they contacted or tried to contact 85,000 of these children who have been placed with sponsors with no response. There have been almost 500,000 children put with sponsors, and the administration's position is they have no responsibility once these children are placed with these sponsors around the country. But that is the very definition of child abuse. Neglect is a form of child abuse, and I think that's what the administration and the Vice President Harris has been guilty of.
After these executive orders that Joe Biden said he couldn't do, but finally did because of politics. Is there any change? Have you seen any significant? I know the numbers are down. You have any thoughts on that? What's the impact down your way in Texas?
Well, 2 things, Larry. One is the cartels are very smart. And so they realize that in the long run, if they want to keep President Biden and Vice President Harris in office, or Vice President Harris now, then they should meter or throttle some of these migrants coming across. They can affect the flow, and I believe they are. The other part of it is phony counting. If you start looking at some of the vast numbers of individuals who are simply not counted in these numbers, you'll realize that there is no accurate number that's being given for who's coming across. And then, of course, we know that there have been about 2 million gotaways, and these are people identified on various cameras and sensors, but never actually encountered by Border Patrol. So the Biden administration simply can't tell you with a straight face what the numbers really are, but it's still a disaster. And we know that in addition to these lost children, we know the border is now open to criminals and even potentially to terrorists. And it's a public safety and humanitarian disaster.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. We appreciate your time very much, sir. Look forward to seeing you soon. Folks, I'll be